Hello, I think we're live now. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Lizzie.
Hi.
Hi, and welcome everyone to today's episode of the Agile Testing Day webinar. And yes, today with Lizzie Hocke right here, Elisabeth Hocke. And thanks so much, Lizzie, for your time and for being here. So thank you so much. And thanks also to everyone who is tuning in. From wherever you are. Hope you're all safe. And before we actually start, I would just like to mention that, as you know, we are going online this year with the conference. So check out the website and see what we got to offer. And if there's anything you want to know, just contact us anytime, Twitter, email, whatever. We're looking forward to your attendance, definitely. Yes, and then before we actually go into the webinar, I'm not sure who all of you know this tool. So I will just give everyone a quick run through so we're all on the same page. So as you know, on the right-hand side, there's the chat. You can use the chat just to say hi. It's really cool to see where you're all from. And hi, Toya. Just like that. So it's cool to see and just to have the feeling that we're all connected. So use the chat to also put in some information if you want to share something that you want to share. If you do have questions, though, concrete questions, please move on to the Ask a Question box, which is in the middle of the screen. You can either post a new question or you can have a look around, and if there's a question that you also find important, then you can just upvote for it. And after Lizzie's talk, I'm going to come back in and we're going to do the Q&A. So just, ask questions. That's always great. To have some interaction going on. Yes, and afterwards, after the webinar, the replay will be available in a matter of seconds, like 30 seconds or so. So you can go back anytime and have a look again. Also, we will put this up on our YouTube channel in a week or two, I would say. Leave the editor a little bit of time to do that. So that's pretty much the whole thing about this tool. So we hope you all enjoy it. And another thing is we definitely want to say thank you to our today's sponsor, who is Test Revolution. They're so kind and stick with us through these crazy times. So thanks so much for being there and supporting us. Now to Lizzie. Lizzie actually, which I found pretty nice when I read her through her bio, got infected by the Agile bug right when she started working quite a few years ago, in Agile testing. And she's now the principal Agile tester at Flixbus. And she's very passionate about sharing her knowledge, sharing her story, sharing the ways of how we can actually learn more. Continuous learning is the keyword there. And she's just trying to giving back what she has received from the community over the years. And that's why we love her so much as well, because she gives us hints, she gives us advice. She's always there. And I think that's a pretty cool thing for us to have her in the community. So thanks for that. Also, she contributes with her blog. So check out her blog. I think Steffi will put in the link in the chat if you want to check that out. And she's on Twitter and tweets about what she's doing. She's an advocate for mentoring and for pairing and for reaching goals together in a team. A whole team approach is the next keyword there. And this is exactly what she's going to be talking about today, right? So I'm really looking forward to this. I think we can all learn better in a team, better from each other. And now probably from Lizzie. So Lizzie, like I said, again, thanks so much. I'm going to go out now. You can start your screen share and I'm going to come back in a couple of minutes. Thanks so much. And I'm now giving the stage to you.
Thanks a lot, Ina. Thanks for having me and your kind words.
Thank you.
So I'm going to share my screen now. All right. So, hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here. So as you heard, my name is Lisi. I'm a tester. And this is the story of mob programming, testing, and everything. It's an experience report, our team story seen through my own eyes. And I hope it will inspire you to start your own experience and your own experiments in your own context. So what I'm going to share in this talk is, first of all, how this story begins. I mean, how my team discovered the mob approach. Then also how we experimented with it and what we learned by doing so. The impact this whole new form of collaboration had on me personally, on my team, on our organization, even our communities. But of course, questions and doubts also came up, so I'm going to address those as well. And in the end, let's have a look at how you can experience it yourself. So let the story begin. How did it all start? Now, I realized I love teamwork quite early on, actually. And I love the fact of bringing in different kind of expertise, so something better gets out of it. So you don't have to know everything on your own. You're not alone, but you can share the load. Together we're more than the single parts. So I always said I'm a strong team player, and I really thrived in a team. Collaboration was good, things went well, but what did collaboration in a team really, really mean to me? Nowadays, I realized I was rather a strong individual contributor to a team. Because when it came to doing my own part, I did things mostly by myself. I mean, I was hired to be the expert on the team, right? I'll do them best. Now, I was uncomfortable when another one peeked over my shoulder, to see what I was doing. I quickly felt stupid. I felt I lost my ability to do even the simplest things, like just typing. And I felt also I could get judged. It was quite scary for me. I mean, someone could realize that my contribution wasn't that big after all, right? So I was quite scared of showing what I don't know, of my weaknesses, that people would see them. So whenever someone wanted to do something together with me, like for example, a colleague I had who always wanted to write important emails together and sort of forced me into doing so, I hated that back then. Nowadays, I think a lot different, but we will come to that why. And still back then, I was still preaching for the whole team approach to testing and quality, just as propagated by Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory, authors of one of the most influential books I've ever read, Agile Testing. So everybody should contribute, right? But asynchronously, obviously. Then I learned more on my journey, and I came across an approach called pair programming. And I heard about it many times, mostly in an extreme programming context. And people shared that this really improved the resulting product quality. And it got me intrigued. So I started talking about pairing and that I would love to work in a team who did this. And I was referring to the developers only, of course, me excluded. Well, I wasn't heard by my team yet. So that was the situation where we started from. We were an agile team, cross-functional, a product team, and also delivering only one product, quite self-contained, autonomous. But most of my teammates were not open to pair up. Some really rejected that idea. So they sat together maximally on demand. So whenever someone had a problem, of course, someone else could come over to support, solve it together. But then, please go back to your own story. And then I heard about something else, this strange new approach of mob programming, having the whole team working on the same task, same place, same time, same computer. Such an unusual idea, and it instantly fascinated me. And now I realize, well, it would include me as well, right? But I still was hooked. I wanted to learn more. So I attended a conference talk on a very similar approach. They called it swarming. I started following people on Twitter who mobbed and worked on that. I tried to find out more pieces to this puzzle. Now here's my understanding of the mob approach, what I found out. The term was coined by Woody Swill's team back at Hunter Industries back in 2011. And they said, it's about all the brilliant people working on the same thing at the same time, in the same space, on the same computer. Now, probably many teams found similar approaches before and also afterwards. They maybe just didn't coin that and make it public. This team did, and this is how more and more people learned about it. But back then, this team at Hunter Industries, they simply tried to find better ways of working together, of solving a problem together, and then just to continuously turning up the good the things that were working well. And they also frequently shared, it's not carved in stone how to do things, but I'm still going to share a common variant that's often described. So we get on one page. So you can say the concept in a nutshell could be this. You have a person at the keyboard, which is often called the driver, taking instructions, taking care of the implementations. And then you have a navigator to lead the way, thinking ahead, keeping the big picture in mind. Now you can think of this driver-navigator relation just like in a rally. One has the map and points out tricky spots. The other one takes care of really driving the track of the details. Now, if you would end here, we would be doing strong style pairing. But now we also have the others, the rest of the mob. They're observing what happens here, providing ideas and suggestions to the navigator, maybe researching, maybe taking notes, whatever helps. And they're also preparing for their own turn as navigator, because usually you rotate frequently, either on a timer or on task, whatever works for you. This kind of designated navigator is rather considered a training role and usually dissolves in more experienced and mature mobs. But first we need to learn how to navigate well. So the following guidelines can really help. If you start on the highest level of abstraction with what you're intending to do, that's a huge step in the right direction. So if I just provide my intention, it could be, let's note down our test ideas in a mind map. Maybe the driver instantly knows what to do. All good, we did it 1,000 times before. No need to further explain that. But maybe that's not the case. It's a new person. So the location can help, where things are. For example, let's use Xmind. It's pinned in the dock. But maybe even those details or more details are needed and the location is not enough. So you could even go down to every keystroke and clicks. Move your mouse to the bottom of the screen to have the dock appear, then click on the Xmind icon. It's a red cross X. Well, these kind of details, they might be required in the beginning once, but they will be picked up very, very quickly. So make sure to return to the highest levels of abstraction as soon as possible. There are also a few more things to note here. You're at the right place if you're either contributing or learning in the mob. If you have two ideas or more, bias to action, just try them both. It's really a good idea to try the one from a more inexperienced team member first. Or maybe try the idea that's more unlikely. You'd be surprised. Just try it out. Not instantly reject ideas. There's also a good rule from improvisational theater that can really help. It's called yes and. Basically pointing to building upon each other's ideas, especially if you rotate and you become the next navigator after the one before you. So don't destroy what others build up before you, but just build upon them. As a general guideline, remember the mob should be a safe zone. Be kind, considerate, and respectful with each other. It's about finding your own way how to work well together in your own context and then turning up the good, right? Now, this approach is not only about programming. You can do also mob testing, mob code review, mob everything, basically. Now, as working in a pair is often simply called pairing, working in a mob is often called mobbing. And these terms went viral. They were meant well. They didn't intend to hint to any negative connotations these kind of terms might have. But still, they are problematic. They exclude people from the start. People who connotate traumatic experiences with these terms. It can be really anxiety-inducing. Think lynch mob, think bullying. But this collaborative approach is all about bringing people together, all people. So it's quite contradictory. And many people propose different terms and thought about rebranding. Some people call this swarming or team programming or group programming, but nothing really stuck and really described what the people meant. But finally, these days we have a new term catching fire. And all credits go here to Marit Pöyäri for coming up with a new term, ensemble programming. This one is still catchy and memorable and recognizable. And it's describing the approach quite well because it's used in connotations that are not known to cause harm. So like music or dance or theater, think improv, making each other look good. And it also implies that it requires a lot of practice to learn how to work well together. George here says it even can evoke sort of an ensemble theater company style, who those companies develop shows without a designated playwright or director. Now, I looked up this term also in Wiktionary and researched it. Ensemble is usually used as a noun, and it can have the meaning of a group of separate things that contribute to a coordinated whole. Or if you're speaking about a collective, it could be a group of musicians, dancers, actors who perform together. Now, ensemble is mostly used as a noun, but nonetheless, I decided to also use it as a verb now. And it's actually listed also as a verb, just not commonly used. But it could mean to put things together in a coordinated whole, or to perform together. And that's basically really pinning it. So from now on, I really want to contribute to this rebranding. Many of my resources and the images you're going to see and the tweets, well, they're still referring to the mob. But for the course of this talk, I'm just going to rewrite history and use the new term for a wonderful approach. Enough introduction. Let's see how the story continues. So I guess back then I couldn't stop talking about this ensemble approach for the next quarter. I mean, my team sat together beginning of 2017 and we brainstormed for potential experiments we could use, something to improve how we work together. And we really thought of trying new development approaches, something to add to our toolbox. And suddenly one of my teammates suggested, hey, we could try that ensemble programming you're always talking about. Well, they were still skeptical, but they were willing to give it a try. And that surprised me, but I jumped at that chance. I remember my fears of showing weaknesses. Well, they were still there, but I was just too intrigued to try this new thing and this idea. So we agreed to do an experiment together. We wanted to have at least 5 sessions, do a short retrospective after each session, inspect and adapt, see how things go. The team also said, we don't want to do a practice challenge or something like a coding kata. We want to work on a real story, see how it would work in our everyday life. Something that includes the back end and also front end part of our application, because people considered themselves full stack and they wanted to spread that knowledge as well across the team. Now, management learned about this experiment and they cheered us. So lucky us to work in an environment where we did not have to justify this kind of experiments. We instead received support. But still, people had doubts. They questioned the approach. I mean, how could this be productive? We still need separate code review and testing, all these kind of things. It's a waste of time. This mostly came from developer side. But nonetheless, it happened. The day came when we had our first ensemble. We had everything prepared. I had asked one of our Agile coaches to help me facilitate so I could also be on the mob and experience it myself. So we prepped the room, we had an agenda, we explained again why we wanted to do this, which was mainly about removing productivity blockers that we faced, extending our toolbox. It's a learning opportunity for everyone, and we simply wanted to get the best out of everybody. We explained the approach. We had information radiators on the walls and the tables everywhere. We ensembled, we had a retrospective and gathered insights, and that was it. Well, the retrospective showed further doubts, but people still wanted to try it out more. So this first session was not the last. More sessions followed. We tried it by the book at first, just as described. A navigator leading the way, giving instructions, a driver implementing the instructions, taking care of all the details and not rushing ahead, and the ensemble observing, suggesting, preparing for their time to navigate. We rotated every 4 minutes. there are some common issues that you could face, but we didn't. Talking over each other, for example, or not getting the chance to talk at all, or not trying ideas from beginners, rejecting people with more specialized roles or expertise. But again, this is not where we stumbled, but we did stumble still. For us, meeting room availability, well, that was a biggie. I don't know about your company, but meeting rooms were really, really scarce where I work. Different operating systems, differently defined shortcuts, different keyboard language layouts, different scrolling directions, all those things. I mean, might sound silly, but this was perceived as a major obstacle. This was what people really remembered. And also the things we worked on, our stories, the scope didn't feel right. Sometimes it was too small, or maybe it was too complex. Sometimes, well, let's rather do only parts, or rather do it from start till end. We didn't really, it wasn't feeling right still. We also had sometimes one person working from remote, and we hadn't figured out a good way how to do that back then, especially to also have that person drive as well and be at the keyboard. Overall, it felt too formal for the team. So they wanted to try other ways. They wanted to, experiment a bit further and introduce smaller changes every time we tried it. And I felt back then if we wouldn't change it right away, my team would probably have stopped and not done it again anymore. So that's what we agreed on. And this way we also learned our way. So for example, to do an ensemble approach just in our office, our own one. We don't have to book a meeting room anymore. We just put a big screen in our room, have a table in front of the screen, space prepared. We could just pull up our chairs. So just make it as easy as possible. We also thought about the different computer setups. Well, actually, in the end, it didn't prove such important after all, because, well, we stumbled, people complained, but it was more about feeling uncomfortable in front of everyone else, right? If you stumble in front of everyone else, it's not a comfortable experience. The trick was everybody did it because we always changed computer. So we always had a different setup. And besides the owner of that computer, everybody had their turn in stumbling a bit. But this way, we made it safe. And we also learned a lot more ways how to do things, a lot more tools and tricks in regards to the setup. So we got a lot more flexible by doing so. But we had to give each other that trust and space and time, make sure it's okay to stumble. We also adapted our rotations. So at first we tried longer ones, like every 15 minutes we rotated. In the end, we decided not to use a timer at all anymore, but just, do one part, finish it, rotate, do the next small task, finish it, rotate. That worked a lot better for us. In the beginning, we said this person at the keyboard, the driver, was not allowed to think, right? But people didn't consider that to be really helpful or welcome. So we made it clear, okay, everyone can contribute, including the driver, but don't rush ahead. So if you have an idea and you're currently at the keyboard, suggest it out loud to the navigator and they can decide. This designated navigator, it dissolved over time. This role was not needed anymore as soon as we learned how to communicate well with each other. And also we allowed partial ensembles. So we didn't force anybody to stay. It was hardly possible to find longer slots without any meetings anyway. So it would have hindered us from ensembling at all. So by allowing partial mobs and allowing people to leave the ensemble, we noticed that everyone was actually trying to get back as soon as possible. People felt they would miss out on things otherwise. So it was quite an interesting dynamic. Now we did our 5 ensemble sessions. Experiment was over. What now? We put this approach in our toolbox, lived there quite happily, and from time to time we would pull it out for a short time. And that was it. Until the following happened. In 2017, we had one person on the team that took care of all things infrastructure, build pipeline, databases, you name it. And he was very interested in these kind of DevOps topics, so he took over the same work for 2 other teams as well. Now, not surprisingly, we built up a huge knowledge silo there. And he was the only one who could do these things. So when on sick leave or vacation, well, we postponed this kind of work. You know, it was quite embarrassing. We didn't even know how to start our production database. But besides that, I mean, it was quite convenient, right? But our lottery factor was really not great. You know, what happens when the expert on the team leaves and, you know, because maybe they won the lottery? So instantly leaving. Does all the work stop or can we continue? Well, that's basically what happened to us because back then, everything was great until that colleague left the company. And we even had time to do knowledge transfer, and it also happened. We had 3 months, but it was not enough, way not. It's a curse of implicit knowledge. You don't know what others don't know. And this was the situation where we faced a huge epic coming. We had to move our whole infrastructure from a private data center to AWS and Kubernetes, and no one knew how to do this. And it also involved new technology. So what to do? Well, we just added another tool to our toolbox, right? So what if that tool would come in handy right now? Could that be a solution? Alan here says also an ensemble can break down the silos. And that's what we decided back then. Let's solve this problem together. Have all brains in. Instantly spread that knowledge. So everybody should have a baseline of that knowledge to avoid such a situation in the future. So we decided we ensemble on most parts of this epic. And we did it several times a week, as much as we could do. We needed to learn a lot of things together. So sometimes we were researching asynchronously before we ensembled. Sometimes we were researching at the same time, just sitting together, and everybody could ask questions already right in time. Sometimes we just learned together as an ensemble, synchronously. And in the end, we managed to accomplish our big endeavor. Infrastructure moved, most things automated and therefore also documented. Nice. Well, afterwards, we continued to ensemble quite regularly. Well, not too much, maybe 2-3 times a month. But we knew now this can really, really help. So sometimes we marked the story already for ensembling in advance because we knew, oh, this is something where we need to share knowledge. Or sometimes, and more often, we just called it out on demand. Whenever someone on the team saw the demand and value for it, we just called it out. And it really helped us to solve tricky problems or complex stories, and also to share knowledge and learn from each other. For us, it was the true realization of this whole team approach. So we started to use this format also for other activities, not only developing software or testing or deploying or automating things, but sometimes we just continued in the ensemble for everything. So we worked on writing documentation together, crafting stakeholder presentations, and everybody could give it, reviewing CVs, writing delicate emails and other messages, customer support, debugging issues, you name it. Now let's pause here. Let's reflect on what changed because of this ensemble. What kind of impact did this experiment back in 2017 had on us? On me personally, my team, my company, the community? Well, personally, by working on an ensemble, I really learned a lot. I can't emphasize that enough. For example, I became a lot more confident with code. I'm not coming from a programming background, and I just, picked things up on my way. But suddenly I was at the keyboard as well, and having, I had to write a function in a language I wasn't even familiar with before. But it worked. I was nervous as hell, granted, but it really worked, and I learned a lot. And this understanding, it came over time. The more I did it, the more I learned, the more I understood. And I realized I could also contribute a lot more than I thought, right from the beginning, because I dared to ask those questions no one else dared to ask or thought of, just right in time, before we wandered off too far. Just while we're still in the context, I could also share my testing knowledge. how to quickly get the test data we needed, or what to look for, which kind of heuristics we could use. I could raise risks wherever I saw them. I got us to test in small steps right from the beginning. I could contribute with my product knowledge from a holistic point of view, from a historical and vision point of view. So I really learned that people with different perspectives can bring a lot to the table. So please invite them in. Now, looking back, I also grew a lot more senior in an ensemble. Also regarding other aspects like how to listen, how to communicate well, how to really collaborate in a synchronous way. Skills like empathy, practicing that a lot, improving my observation skills, enabling me to rise those risks earlier. And I also realized what it means to make space for others without speaking for them. Helping others grow. Because being in an ensemble, it helped me really become a better team member and a better teacher. So I'm quite guilty of trying to convey knowledge in the form of, oh, you didn't know that? Everyone knows that. That's easy. Yeah, I'm guilty of that one. But I learned to rephrase that. Hey, great. Here's an opportunity to learn. Let's have a look at it together. And also, there are way more ways than mine. More ways are right, and mine are not always the best. The impact on my team? Well, a side effect was that we suddenly started to pair up as well. I often hear ensembling being basically the step after pairing, but for us, it happened the other way around. The ensemble provided that safe space that we needed to pair up as well. And remember, my developers, they were always hesitant to pair up. After experiencing the benefits of an ensemble, they didn't shy away from it anymore. And we also paired in a lot different constellations across roles. Sometimes from start till end for a change. Sometimes people joined and we formed small ensembles. Sometimes people left again. All this happening quite naturally. We're also a bunch of quite different characters in my team, and we have different needs. This working in an ensemble really helped us grow closer as a team. Well, we made it fun, definitely. We didn't force people, remember? So people heard back. And we also had that social bonding. So with former teams, I socialized with them often over lunch. So eating together, right? But in this team, we had different lunch habits. So we didn't have that synchronized social time. One of my teammates then suggested, but why can't we have just common coffee breaks instead? And we said, yeah, why not actually? So we started synchronizing our bigger breaks and have that social sync and bonding through this way. So as a side effect, we always were forcing ourselves as well to get up, get walking, which also usually managed to get our heads free and let creativity flow again. But changing these kind of collaboration dynamics really triggered a whole culture change for my team. When it comes to my organization, well, more teams heard of our experiment with this ensemble approach, and they asked for introductory sessions. They wanted to give it a try themselves. So I facilitated ensembles for other teams. And this way I learned that actually it's also a great tool to learn from each other and practice together. I ran a series of cross-team, cross-role, cross-location ensembles on various topics in my company. And here we had to do it remotely, of course. So I finally figured out how to do that remotely and how it can work as well, just as well. I introduced this approach in our internal testing community. We were doing ensemble testing together, for example, on the topic of security testing, to spread knowledge here and to build up our skills. And I used it a lot for workshops, hands-on workshops, conveying, for example, exploratory testing skills. So people could really experience it hands-on. So for us, it really worked well to tackle these kind of problems. Sometimes teams also used it for testing a release together with a different set of people, even inviting stakeholders in or people from other teams. And since end of last year in our company, we also have a very first team who is experimenting with ensembling full time. So it really changed the culture quite a bit. And it doesn't stop with my company. It is also quite visible outside in our communities. Now, personally, I learned really a lot by joining ensemble sessions, for example, at conferences. It will show me how to become a better facilitator, but also a better ensemble member, practicing with different kind of people. So I also started facilitating sessions myself outside my company, maybe as a conference workshop, or informally during open space, just sitting together and let's do it. At local meetups, or just remotely with whoever is interested in. One of the most important points that I learned from peering and also ensembling is I realized I really can learn so much from everyone, no matter their seniority role, their level, their background, their expertise, or any other aspect. And the more diverse, the bigger the learning opportunity. I can also contribute, sharing my knowledge, learning by sharing. I strongly believe that when we all learn from each other, our growth will increase exponentially. That's all very well. But the one or the other of you might have quite some questions, some doubts. Our people definitely had. So at times, things went really well, but at other times, we got questioned. I got questioned personally. I heard things like, but you're a tester. Why do you join? Can you even contribute? There's nothing to test yet. And for example, our product owner once challenged me, do you really provide value on an ensemble? Well, he simply wanted to see me make the best out of my time and skills. But it was quite an interesting situation because I didn't have to say anything. My team stepped up and defended me because they saw the benefit, especially having me there just in time, reducing that whole back and forth ping pong of asynchronous work. So specialist roles should really not worry about slowing others down. I mean, admittedly, I did sometimes slow people down, but slow can allow for thoughtful thinking, as Marit says. And this forced people to really explain things. It's a great check for them as well, if they really understood it themselves. We had to think things really through, and this way we went into the right direction sooner. So sometimes we also got questioned as a team. Is it really worth? Can we spend our time more productively? And also our own teammates weren't always convinced because new people joined the team. They were sometimes skeptical, watched from the outside, observed. I mean, remember, we didn't force anyone on the ensemble. Sometimes they joined, but admittedly, they sometimes also just prefer doing their own thing. That's okay too. We try to use the approach whatever we deem best in the moment in time for the problem at hand. But let's dive a bit deeper into this concern that's so frequently coming up. So whenever I talk about the ensemble approach, questions and concern around productivity come up. How productive can it be to have all people working on the same topic? So I listened to Woody Sewell's keynote at Mob Programming Conference 2018, and he was speaking about the power of flow. He flipped this question around and he said, how productive can it be to have all people working in silos? So who has ever proven that working in silos is actually more productive? And he suggests to rather focus on effectiveness. They, back then, measured their outcome before and afterwards. And they found they were doing more stuff, better stuff, in a better quality. It was clear. Now, my own team, well, we haven't measured things quantitatively yet. We only gathered qualitative feedback, but that spoke volumes as well. So if we say effectiveness, what do we mean by that? Well, according to Woody, if we speak about efficiency, this would be doing things right, but that can just result in busy work. So we might be working on the wrong things. How is it about productivity? Well, it's the output we get for the input, right? So we're getting things done, but still we might be getting the wrong things done. And effectiveness would be getting the right things done. And to quote Woody's father here, he said, I'd rather work slowly on the right thing than quickly on the wrong thing. So how can we be effective with 5 people working on one computer? If we flip this question over as well, how can we be effective if we separate the people who should be working together? Taking a step back, let's have a look at the benefits of pairing. Only 2 persons. And I see a lot of benefits there, like getting things done. You can do everything that's needed, and you always have the other person keeping you focused and disciplined. It's a great way to combine your skills and your knowledge. Both benefit, and especially if you pair in different constellations, the knowledge will spread across the team over time. It can also teach both of you on whatever you're doing. It's a bi-directional way of learning, right? So implicit knowledge becomes obvious, and you create that shared context together. It can really generate a lot of ideas faster than when working alone. For example, when doing exploratory testing or debugging your code. So you can nicely complement each other and build upon each other's ideas. So you hardly get stuck. And having a peer also makes you think. You can include different thoughts and viewpoints. Well, diversity really challenges our own understanding, and you can create a shared one this way. A word of warning. Pairing can be great, but for that to happen, it has to feel safe. So pairing should not be there to enforce any kind of power dynamics that might exist, but it should be rather decreasing them. So more senior people can help others grow and at the same time learn from them. If you share your vulnerabilities in the beginning of a pairing session, it makes it more safe for your peer to do so as well. Now, I often think of pairing as the one skill you should really learn in your career, unless you have the chance to discover an ensemble, of course. So how does it all relate? What are the benefits of ensembling then? From my point of view, all points of pairing apply as well. They're multiplied. And there are more, because in an ensemble you have all brains in. So you probably won't get the most out of everybody, granted, but you will get the best out of everybody. So it's perfect if you have tricky problems to solve. You will get the best quality outcome. The whole team has only one topic in progress. So no one has to switch contacts, which is a big, big problem these days. You don't have merge requests if you ensemble. Nothing is stopping you to do your work. Well, it might be slower in the moment, but in the end, you're going faster in the right direction because the cycle time will decrease. Question queue time. That's a concept that describes the amount of time we must wait to get an answer to a question that's blocking us. I bet you're familiar with these kind of situations. So we usually start something else, right? But if you have all people together, your questions are instantly answered. And sometimes you can even discover those valuable questions that we should ask a lot earlier. So we're not blocked this way. Most bottlenecks are gone. This whole back and forth ping pong is gone. And sometimes we tend to forget how often things come back to us, right? So not only with code review or testing or product owner feedback or customer feedback or anything, this can really hurt. In an ensemble, everybody's instantly informed about everything. So decisions are made together in time. There's no need for further feedback loops or follow-up tasks or asynchronous reviews, not even for daily synchronization meetings, because the whole team is synchronized all the time. Knowledge is spread, especially implicit knowledge, and you instantly share it with the whole team. And when you ensemble regularly, then vacation replacement, it's no worry anymore. It's also really great for onboarding new people in the team. We had that case in our very, very first ensemble. They quickly learn how to do things as we do it. They get immediate answers on their questions. You can get support on your first steps. The ensemble is also safer than pairing, because if you have power dynamics existing, they're mitigated a lot better in an ensemble when compared to a pair. The whole team is there to regulate. It's also less intense than pairing, because in an ensemble, you can easily opt out for tackling some private tasks, or just take a personal break, and you're not stopping the work. You can just rejoin the ensemble anytime and get quickly up to date again. So this approach is way more introvert friendly than pairing, because when pairing, you're always on the spot. It's way more intense. When you take a break, you basically pause the pair. An ensemble is also great to grow everyone. So more senior people learn and practice how to express their thoughts and their intentions as easily comprehensible as possible. And the ones on the beginner side can practice hands-on how to do things by actually doing them. It's a great way to become close. As already shared, my team grew a lot closer due to ensembling. We learned how to communicate within the team better, and in general, how to get to know each other better. Now we talked a lot about the benefits. Let's have a look from another angle and also continue telling our story, because there's actually more to it. My team changed over the years again. People left, other people joined, our collaboration patterns changed again. And we ensembled less and less with the whole team. So not all new joiners were really willing to invest in full stack skills. They were not as interested. Some just preferred to work solo within their expertise. Those who are up for this approach, well, they usually pair nowadays. So sometimes smaller ensembles evolve, maybe 3 people together. And at the same time, my own role also changed. I was expected to spend more time working on global topics with other teams. So if my team ensembled or paired, I often missed out on this synchronous collaboration. And this way I learned further reasons why to ensemble. So here's my perception of what happened. The information sharing across the whole team decreased heavily. That led to part of the team not knowing certain information, missing out. And then I often heard things like, oh, we talked about it already. Or this wasn't interesting for you. I felt I learned a lot less, for example, about new technology that got introduced. And I had to take quite some time to catch up on my own and then bother them again to ask all those beginner questions that they had already answered a long time ago. Now, as a dedicated tester in the team, I also have a bit of a different role. I bring in different knowledge, different perspective and focus. And not having been on the ensemble, I often joined the topic way later, so I could ask my questions way later. I often had no idea what happened or which decisions had been made. So people also did not remember what might be interesting to share. I got a lot less chance to convey my own knowledge and spread it further in the team by working hands-on things together. So this knowledge sharing across the whole team decreased. New bottlenecks, new knowledge silos evolved. And there was also a social factor to it. I felt a lot more separate again. We suddenly handed things over. My teammates continued to work on new things. So I felt we were falling back to old habits, having to play ping pong again. A lot more rework needed to be done before we could deliver value. And it was definitely less fun. Last but not least, there's another frequent question that comes up. When to ensemble, when not? Now, different companies, teams, and people have different approaches. Back at Hunter Industries, where this practice evolved and got published, they still have full-time ensembles. Other companies use it rather as an approach in their toolbox, like we also do. But when not? Well, I'd say in case of confidential issues, tasks that you cannot share across the team. Yeah, in that case, of course. Obviously, it's not a good idea to ensemble. Administrative work might also not be the best one to choose. But that being said, we've also done travel expense reports in a more effective way together. I mean, you probably know how complicated these kind of forms can be. Overly simplistic tasks, they might also not be the best. But who am I to judge what's simplistic for the others as well? So anything else is actually valid to be experimented with. Learn what works for you. For us, we found that complicated and complex tasks, those work best for us. And when to stop? Well, we always looked for an energy drop. People drifting away, losing focus. There might be a lot different reasons why. Maybe just a break is needed. But in the end, I can talk a lot about the ensemble approach. It's way better to experience it yourself. So if you keep wondering how this could work, how you would interact, what would change, which impact it might have on you, well, there's only one way to find out. Give it a try. Nobody can tell it won't work until you've given it a real try. So experience it to see for yourself. You can take this with you and try it out at home, maybe with your own team, an internal community, or just a group of interested people online, anywhere. And there's no one-size-fits-all solution. You have to experiment and try things out in your context to see what works best. But for this, people have to be ready. And if you do it at your company, not all teams or team members want to try something new. It's about finding that sweet spot where they're willing to experiment. And with every step, they probably will open up a bit more and more. But change really takes time. But if you have the chance to do your first ensemble sessions and facilitate them, well, this is what helped us. And maybe it will help you as well. Prepare. So if you're doing this co-located, a quiet space was really good. A place where everyone can sit comfortably and see the screen and projection very well. An external keyboard and mouse was really good to have. Also being ready to switch keyboard languages, having drinks, having snacks, all that stuff. But if we're doing this remotely, as we probably usually do these days, it's still about preparation. Know your tools. Video conferencing tools can really help. For example, to also share screen control. Know how to work on the same thing. If you don't have sharing screen control, maybe think about how to do a quick code handover. There are tools that can help. Then start with why. Explain it again, why you're doing this, what the experiment is about, get everyone on a shared page. Explain the approach as lightweight and short as possible. So usually just use a small visualization, maybe on a flip chart or a shared screen. Get them doing as fast as you can, because pieces will fall into their places once you try them. Having a designated navigator and also designated facilitator in the beginning really, really helped us. Picking a small task as well, nothing too complex. So you can really focus on learning how to work well together. Decide based on your group. Maybe they want to do just a coding kata or exploratory testing or whatnot, whatever they want to try. Then ensemble for 1 to 2 hours, not too much in the beginning, because it can be exhausting otherwise. And remember to end happy, because that's what people will remember. So, like with everything we do, take time to reflect, and with a short retrospective, see what was working well, what kind of things you can do better, turn up the good, have a concrete thing you want to try and change in the next session. Continuously improving ourselves is just key in everything. Make it a safe learning environment. Calling out a safe space in the beginning is sometimes also just best to practice this first with trusted people. And remember, kindness, consideration, and respect. Make space for others. Every voice deserves to be heard. And people have different needs. Talk about them. Agree on how you want to try this now. Make it explicit. Because in the end, it's all about the people and how we work well together, how we solve problems together, how we improve together, how we deliver value together, how we enjoy working together, and how we can do something meaningful together. Now, on our journey, I've found a lot of valuable resources that help me, and you can find them here on the provided page. Our story of ensemble programming, testing, and everything, it's not over yet. I'm sure the best is yet to come. But still, I'm already seeing how much we benefited from this approach so far. So I really strongly recommend, try it out, gain your own experience, and then turn up the good. In case you have any questions I can't answer right away, just write me a direct message on Twitter, because I'd love to hear your thoughts and also learn from your experiences and your experiments. But for now, I'm just leaving you with saying thank you.
Hello. Back again. Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much for this presentation. I was actually talking to my colleague all the time, like, oh, we need to try. So you've got us intrigued definitely with this ensemble approach. Yes, and I would now probably just kick out your slides. There we go. So we now begin again. Yes, and there are a few questions in here, so I think I'm just gonna start with the most voted one. And yeah, and like I said before, I actually go into the questions. Great presentation. I really liked it. Thanks. All right. Okay. Okay. Well, Michael's asking, is there a book or a study actually proving the superior performance of ensembles?
So I think, yeah, Steffi already posted the link to the resources page that I shared.
Mm-hmm.
These are the most valuable resources that I found.
Mm-hmm.
And these are mostly experience reports. So I'm not sure if you're thinking of a formal study, but I know that there are researchers from university that are having this topic as a study topic, but it's not, I think it's too early yet because these wheels turn a bit slower sometimes. But I also had an interview with one of those, I got interviewed by him as input for his study. So I think we can look out for more interesting results the next year.
Yeah, thanks. I think what you might be having in mind is to kind of onboard this to management, right? To get the okay for doing this. That's just what my idea was when I was reading the question. All right, so we move on to the next one. Oh yes, Christian is asking, what would you advise on how to start ensemble programming without having an experienced facilitator / moderator available?
Well, that basically describes what I just shared as a story, because nobody of us had tried it before or knew more about it. It was all based on my personal research because I got so intrigued by the topic. So I would suggest you start with the resources and learn more about it and just give it a try then. Mm-hmm. Try it out, see for yourself, see what works. As an alternative idea, it could really help to join one of the offers that are currently also spread across the world. You can find people online on Twitter or different Slack teams or whatnot, asking for other people to join them and ensemble on a certain topic. So if you want to gain experience, there are many, many opportunities to just try it out.
Test it out.
It requires a bit of courage to do it instantly with a group of strangers. Mm-hmm. But trust me, it can be a really good experience. It depends on the people, of course, a lot. But if you're willing to give it a try, this could be a good way to gain this experience first for yourself before you get it to your team, whatever works for you.
Yeah. And if you started in a team, everybody is new, right? Like everybody's new to the topic. And so it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a big sandbox. All right, moving on. Another one from Michael. Do you know the remote mob programming book? If yes, have you tried and liked or disliked it?
Yes. It could even be, Michael, that you were the one finding me to it. But I know about the book. I read it. Mm-hmm. It's basically also for other people. It's freely available. It's also one of the resources I linked. Mm-hmm. And this is based on the experiences of a team who used this approach as a consultant team, providing services for other companies and working on a product together remotely. So they also provided or shared their tips on the tool sets for remote ensembling together. And I also tried the tool for quick code handover. I actually really like it. It was a bit, you needed to get used to it, but it was really speeding things up a lot. So for anyone interested in the remote version and getting tips and tricks, what could work, this is a great source of inspiration.
So it's a recommendation.
Yes. Okay. It's also linked, so no worries.
All right. Yeah, perfect. All right. Next one up is Amit with a question. What would you say are the differences between ensembling in a CADA or a conference/training and doing this on day-to-day work?
I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly.
Okay.
So what's the
Thinking about
difference?
the CATA, also KATA or CATA,
Yeah.
what would you say are the differences between ensembling in a CATA or CATA
Mhm.
or a conference or training and doing this on day-to-day work?
The biggest difference that I would see is that you know the people better of your own team, of course. I mean, you won't know them as much or as well as after ensembling together, of course, because you will get to know them better this way. But definitely you already have relationships built up. And when you meet at a conference, these are probably strangers. So the dynamics are different. But both have value from my point of view. So for practicing at a conference or virtually anytime, I learn a lot of different kind of approaches and perspectives from other people. So it's a lot of inspiration. But when it comes to everyday work, it's really hands-on, focused work on the problem we want to solve together.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of knowledge sharing around that, but it's a lot more focused on a real problem than. But I think still the key difference is the people.
Yeah.
Different dynamics.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Okay, this is also nice. You probably touched on it as well already. Putting aside social or cultural blockers, are there any situations where you think ensembling is not appropriate?
Yeah, that's exactly what I shared. These were the only cases where I found ensembling would not be appropriate. But actually, that being said, we also ensembled on scheduling a meeting in Outlook. Guys, not everybody knows those everyday tools.
Yeah.
And I found out about so many things that I thought were like obvious because I was using them for like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, maybe even, but it's not obvious to everybody. This is also a great place where, can show people how to find free spots in their calendars because people were not aware.
Yeah.
So this is why I say like nothing is really too simple. You have to try it out what works.
Yeah, and it's a very it depends on person to person what you refer to as simple or complex, right?
And you don't know what the others know or don't know. That's the thing. And you will find out only by doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is a long one. You've mentioned that as a team, you have decided to try ensemble programming for 5 sessions. What would you say were the conditions that enabled you to raise this option of an experiment? How would you go about creating those conditions in an environment that does not have them?
So back then, our situation was that the company was about to experiment overall with OKRs, which is objectives and key results, which sort of triggered us to think from quarter to quarter about things that we want to achieve as a team, which is not maybe on a roadmap for a product, but maybe also about working together. And this was one of the triggers where we sat together at the beginning of the quarter and thinking about what could we experiment on. And nowadays, we don't have them anymore, so it's not a used approach. But I still try to have a lot of conversations with other teams as well to experiment frequently. Not only from retrospective to retrospective, because actually what you want to try there and see if it, inspect in depth, these are also experiments, but also to have, to tackle different challenges in a more structured way and really spell it out, see how you want to measure things, if it worked or not, and have that regular check. And these experiments could be just a day experiment or maybe 2 weeks or maybe 3 months, but smaller is usually better. If you're not in an environment where this is already a lived culture, and honestly, also with us, I'm still working on fostering that culture. Maybe find that spot where you can just try things. Can be a small one where you don't have to justify anything. So you can then also lead by examples and maybe show the results and get people convinced. But that really heavily depends on your context.
Yeah. And it's probably always good to just, do it, like take part in it to understand, actually. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, maybe a big thing can't be done right away because that needs then permission and everything, and you just can't do it under the hood. But maybe a smaller thing you can, and it's still in your realm where you don't have to, justify every minute. So maybe think around that, what could be possible in your context, and then widen it a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, last question so far, also by Michael. Oh, that's a good one. Do you think there's a lower / higher limit of participants in an ensemble? Probably the optimal amount of people he's asking here.
That's also quite a frequent question, so thanks for bringing that up. I heard so many different answers on that question that I nowadays believe there's not. But one thing regarding the lower limit, what really worked well is if you're not only 3, because then one can always leave and you don't leave a pair, but you still leave an ensemble, which is a bit of a different dynamic. So at least 4 is really nice, but it doesn't have to be. And the upper limit, I heard people doing this even with a group of 50 persons with a special approach of more like a fishbowl-ish session. So yeah, I think there are a lot of approaches that can work and also can work well. So I'm open to experiments there.
Okay. Yes, that was the last question. If there's anything else that people want to know, I'm sure you'll be happy, like you just said, to answer that if they write you. Yes, in my mind, it's already twirling around what we could do in the team. Let's see. Yes, for everybody who has been here, I thank you so much for taking part, for the questions. And please come back for the next webinar. It's happening in 2 weeks with Tolu, and she's going to talk about accessibility testing, the manual parts. Pretty cool. Hope you show up for that as well. And yes, if you want to look around in what we just talked about, just watch the replay and share what you've learned on Twitter with us. We're happy to know, and I think Lizzie too. And I think if everybody agrees, I learned a lot. I hope everybody agrees. I think so. And I really want to try this out with the team. And I'm really thankful for your time, Lizzie, and for sharing.
In words.
Thanks so much, everybody out there. Thanks, Lizzie. Hope you have a nice day. Is it sunny out there?
It is.
Yes, I'm going to go out now in the garden, play with a cat. Okay, thanks so much, everybody. See you all in 2 weeks, and see you soon, Lizzie. Thanks again.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.